Okay, now we're live. Hello, everyone, and welcome to FinTech Istanbul's webinar series. Hello from Istanbul, and have a good day and also a week. Today, I have a special guest from Dubai, Ali Hassan from Dubai International Finance Center. Hello, Ali, and welcome to our webinar.
Thank you very much, Salim. I'm delighted to be here and delighted to be partnering with FinTech Istanbul, and thank you everyone that's joined today.
Thank you. Today we're going to talk about Dubai FinTech ecosystem with Ali. We have organized some special topics which are about Dubai and DIFC as well. Benefits of being based in the DIFC, market entry opportunities, and market opportunities in the innovation hub as well. So before we start, some of you might remember that as FinTech Istanbul, we have signed an MOU with FinTech Hive at DIFC 3 years ago in 2019. We'll be renewing this MOU today. So which means that we're going to be partnering for another 3 years as well. For the market, for the Turkish market, as you might remember that we have a diverse fintech ecosystem with more than 550 fintech startups operating in 13 different verticals, Ali. 56 of them are regulated and almost another 50 are in the waiting list of the regulator as far as we know. And expanding to new markets is a challenge in terms of growth. But we have a quite good cases from Turkey as well. Dubai is always an attractive market for Turkish entrepreneurs for a long time. But we also know that it has its own challenges like every other market. So today, together we'll be talking about how to overcome those challenges and also learn the opportunities that it will bring to entrepreneurs with you. So before we start, Ali, could you please introduce yourself and your role in the DIFC?
Of course, Salim. So I lead international coverage for Dubai International Financial Center. I've been involved with the center for 17 of its 18 years. 8 years previously as a financial regulator in Dubai, having been at the FSA in the UK for 6 years previous to that. And the last 8 years on the business development side, really assisting firms to export their expertise, products and solutions into the GCC and wider region. So that is my current role, and I'm delighted to be here, and I look to assist you in your considerations.
Thank you. So you have a quite experience both on the regulator side or on the market side. So let us hear from you the experiences or the challenges or the opportunities in the market. I think you have prepared a presentation. But if you allow me, maybe I can interrupt you by asking some questions while you are presenting.
Of course. Okay. Shall we see the slides? Have we got those? There we go. Excellent. So I think to take that sort of first question, that you posed, Salim. A common question that people think about is, when should a digital business look at international opportunities? And I think, through the discussions I've had and through the engagements I've had, I think digital business models, by their very nature, tend to be highly scalable across borders, with the potential market being global, right? All markets right now are undergoing digital transformation across different economic sectors, and international expansion not only increases the revenue potential, but is also a valuation multiplier. So even if you're a startup or you're at the growth stage, I think it's valid to explore international opportunities, right? So the question then becomes, not when, but how and which markets to prioritize. So that's how I see it. So the first, and I think there are three factors when looking or trying to assess a particular market. And the first factor, I think, is the market opportunity, right? So what is the size of the potential market? What does the competitive landscape look like? I.e., what is the growth potential that's being offered to my business? And I think if you look at the GCC and wider region, that you see a significant opportunity for digital businesses. I mean, the market size is there, the demographics are supportive, there's high penetration of digital products, like smartphones. There are significant pools of public and private capital, which are being deployed in, growth and diversifying economies. You've got less of an issue around legacy systems because, businesses are fast forwarding and don't necessarily have the tech already in place. And then the competitive environment is relatively benign, particularly if you look at or compare that with Europe or the United States. And all of that, as far as what we've seen over the last 3 or 4 years, has generated opportunities in payments, in client onboarding, in KYC, in AI, in blockchain technology. These are some of the key areas that we've seen firms be successful with in the GCC and wider MEASA market. So we say Middle East, Africa, South Asia. We see Dubai and DIFC as a hub for that. And then the second factor is, okay, so once you've sort of worked out the size of the market opportunity, is how conducive is the business environment that, in the jurisdiction or the country that you're looking at? How is it enabling your business to grow? And then the third, and it's kind of coupled in with that, is how does the location stack up for attracting and retaining talent that will continue to underpin your business growth? And I think Dubai, has done a tremendous job over the decades in terms of building on its heritage as a location for trade. It's now a global commercial hub at the heart of trade flows between Asia, Middle East, and Europe. And it's the key things that it's done is put in the hard and soft infrastructure really to support business and provide that quality of lifestyle that international talent wants to see, right? So for example, of course, you have great connectivity through airlines, Emirates, of course, and of course you have a very successful airline in Turkey as well. But the schools are there, the hospitals, the leisure facilities, the dining facilities. And, we've combined that with that sort of soft infrastructure around, progressive laws, regulations, and economic policies, actually, that look to welcome businesses and individuals from around the world. So, we really see, Dubai offering itself as a unique gateway for all those reasons, for that MEASA market. And then we come to the, one aspect, so I touched upon that, the business environment. One aspect is that legal and regulatory certainty, right? And I guess it's my comfort zone, Salim, talking about the regulatory context. But I think that's key, right? When you're looking at international expansion, and that's been at the, a core element of the DIFC's mission from the beginning. So we were created in 2004. And now it's the largest financial services, professional services, and innovation cluster in the GCC and wider region. 30,000 people, 3,000 companies, 500 plus tech companies, and 140 plus nationalities. Work in the center. And so what we've done is adopt international standards of law, regulation, and the business norms. Combine that with great infrastructure to attract firms, to attract that talent, to provide a great ecosystem. And then we're also a jurisdiction within a jurisdiction, actually. So we are a common law legal environment. We have a body of laws, the DIFC laws, which are based on the best, if you like, practice from common law jurisdictions from around the world. We have our courts to administer those laws. And then we have the DFSA, again, a regulator that's modeled on international standards. And so the thinking is, not only does it give you certainty as a business when you're coming in, but it allows you to relatively easily bring business models and control frameworks that are established elsewhere and drop them into this ecosystem. So yeah, I mean, there are challenges operating in any international market, Salim, as you pointed out, but we have tried to smooth that path as much as possible. And then in combination with the regulatory and legal environment, we've added those business friendly aspects around 100% ownership, around competitive taxation rates, around who you can employ, and the free flow of capital. So all of that's been put in there. Now, there has been, over a period of time, some debate as to, Dubai International Financial Center as a federal financial free zone. What access does that give me in the UAE? Well, I think that, Dubai took a significant step in 2021. Dubai Law number 5 explicitly underlines the notion that sitting in the DIFC, you have access to the wider UAE market. So, some people have looked to differentiate, it's a free zone, you don't have access. Dubai government has made that clear.
So you have a great opportunity in the UAE as well.
Exactly, Salim. Exactly. So it gives you that access, and that's now been put in law, and I can provide that detail to those that may be interested.
Perfect, because sometimes it's misunderstood by the entrepreneurs.
Exactly. And that's why it's good to have a discussion with me and my colleagues in Dubai, and to go through the specific business model. But clearly, everyone, those 3,000 companies, the 30,000 people, they are not just sitting in the DIFC. Sure. And not engaging with the UAE market. Of course they are. So let's move on to the next one. So what are the and I want to come on to the benefits of the DIFC in a little bit more detail. So for tech companies coming into the region, in essence, what we're saying is that we solve for that market, investor, and client access. So as well as financial services, as I said, Dubai is the global commercial hub for the GCC. You've got 70% of Fortune 500 companies have their regional headquarters sitting in Dubai. So if you're embedded in the DIFC ecosystem, not only do you get access to financial services players from around the world, but Dubai itself as the city gives you access to many players, regional and international, across the different economic sectors. So you're leveraging Dubai's standing as a global commercial hub as well. And then just focusing in on financial services. I mean, it's a deep cluster, right? It's a deep financial cluster in the DIFC, a ready-made network, really. I mean, here showing you some of the banking players that are sitting in the center, and they provide great engagement for funding and from a revenue perspective. Again, international, regional, from Asia, from Middle East, from Europe, North America. And many of the regional banks in particular are looking to build out their customer offerings using digital solutions. They don't have the legacy systems, right? They've been quite manual. They're also moving into other areas. So banks are looking to offer, asset management type, wealth management type solutions. So there's a potential, source for partnership, for white labeling, and indeed, for investment. And that actually, a story that somebody told me was that they were able to secure a deal with HSBC in Dubai, and they found that easier rather than trying to go through all the layers of management at HSBC HQ in London. So it's quite a nice sized market, the UAE. I mean, it's small enough to matter, to be significant, but large enough to be significant, but small enough to be manageable. Definitely as a sort of pilot or proof of concept.
So, Ali, before you continue, I have a question in terms of partnering. So, how do you see the partnering motivation of those financial institutions with fintech startups?
Yeah, great question, Salim. So, for example, within our innovation hub, we have our FinTech Hive accelerator program, and we have 40 plus partner firms sitting and embedded in that program, and it's the sort of who's who of banking and payments, and it's also law firms, etc. Now, their reason for being there is because they want to see the flow of ideas and solutions that tech companies are offering. And indeed, as part of the accelerator program, we give a very structured engagement with those partners. And on application, and in fact, we're actually open for applications right now for the next cohort. But as part of that, you get that engagement, and those entities, may decide to invest, may decide to mentor you, or indeed, utilize, the solution that you're offering. So we've actually seen, for example, I think there was a Scandinavian blockchain-based EKYC solution that was taken up by one of the local banks in the UAE. So that's their motivation. That they can look at solutions that are meeting their needs, and they can respond accordingly. So just turning to the wealth cluster, so we looked at banking. The wealth cluster again is sizable. It's established. You have money being raised from the region, so over $500 billion now, and you've also got money that's being managed in the DIFC, so it's over 100 billion, well over 100 billion now. And you have some of the end investors that are also sitting in the DIFC, some managers, but also family offices. And this again, is a ready-made cluster with great proximity to the tech companies, and looking for various solutions. Whether it's data analytics, whether it's wealth tech, whether it's portfolio management, and again, lack of legacy really. So a fairly greenfield opportunity, if you like. Yeah, and then I guess we were saying it's an opportunity to be part of something big, right? Here you can just be giving you a flavor of the types of firms that have come, and what segments have been addressed, and it is the largest tech cluster by a long way in the GCC, right? So 60% of all GCC fintech companies sit in the DIFC. 6 times larger than any other cluster, right? And the firms are fintech, but you can see that 22% software, SaaS. We also have health tech, HR, marketing. So right across right across the board for the reasons that I've sort of touched upon. It is, it's proving helpful for a number of different types of firms. And it's a vibrant community. We're trying to add value, right? So it's not just come and you just get on with it. We're trying to foster the exchange of ideas and knowledge. So, we started running from 2021 and into 2022, various knowledge sharing events. We've had a very successful one focused on blockchain last week. We had one on AI. I think the UAE is, I think at the forefront, in terms of government, in the forefront of a digital adoption. So there's actually a minister for AI in the UAE, and he, we were privileged enough for him to be participating in our AI week last week. So, from our perspective, also, I think the international linkages and the MOU, obviously, that we have in place with FinTech Istanbul, I think it's very, very important. We place a lot of emphasis on that because actually, ultimately, the firms that we have that are growing, they will start looking at international opportunities, and obviously, Turkey, would certainly be on the list. I would say. So we see those international linkages. It's not a competitive, a kind of equation. It's a complementary equation, right? So we're working together. We will grow the pie for everyone. Is the rationale, and that's what we've seen over the years. The other aspect is that we very much see regulation as an enabler. So our regulator, the DFSA, has looked to flex our regulations to adopt and adapt for new business models, because we think it's good for market participants and it's good for investors, right? So regulations can bring certainty, can bring transparency. You can have the safeguards in place, and it just becomes more acceptable for transactions. So we've had new payment regulations have been put in place. We had an investment token regulatory framework put in place by the DFSA last year. So that's basically digital assets where there's a token but there's an underlying real asset. And then we've got the VC framework also, and then at some point this year, the DFSA is looking at utility and exchange tokens, right? So that's the cryptocurrency and stable coin space. Now, that's quite a complicated area, and the DFSA, as a prudent regulator, is taking its time because regulators around the world are looking at what should be the response. And I think the DFSA is minded to ensure that, again, whatever it puts out there is in line with international standards. So no shortcuts, just proper regulation in the interests of all.
Ali, let me give you a break. When I look at the graph, I have seen that only 19% of the fintech regulated fintechs are in payments vertical. In contrary, in Turkey, 40% of the fintechs are in payment vertical. That was strange to see that, and also crowdfunding has a majority in the size.
Yes, I mean it's. I think that this is a moment in time, and this is September 21, so it's kind of lagging where we are in reality. I mean, there is we've had the DFSA put its payments regime in place in April of 21, right? So it's a relatively new regime. So we have a number of payments firms that are in the process of being licensed currently, all currently in the regulatory sandbox. So they're going to come through, and those percentages are going to change as the numbers grow, right? So you've probably got a bit of distortion. The crowdfunding regime was put in much earlier. It was, I think, 2 or if not 3 years ago. So it's a bit more mature. But I would expect over time, you're right, that payments is going to take over from crowdfunding, and then you're going to get the other percentages moving. But yeah, good spot.
Because we have strong muscles in the payment side in Turkey.
Oh yeah, I mean, I think payments is huge, right? I mean, we've seen tremendous growth in e-commerce in the GCC. So like, I don't know, up until recently, 75% of transactions in the UAE was in cash, right? But that's changed. That's changing significantly. You've got Careem that was acquired by Uber, a ride hailing app. All that sort of, all the developments that we've seen in Western markets is definitely happening at an accelerated pace in the GCC. So lots of potential for payments. The complexity with payments is that often, one aspect, which is universal, is some resistance by incumbent players, right? So, but I think that that eventually rights itself, and then then the opportunity, is there for everyone. But it's an interesting area. Yeah, and then just look, it's a community of like-minded individuals. You mentioned payments, Salim. You can see Adyen, Ebury, Moneycorp as some of the ones that are in, and there are many others coming. So over 500. We think it's going to be close to 1,000, by the end of 22, and they're coming from the region, but internationally as well, right across the board, Europe, North America. Mixture of unicorns. So actually I was just working very recently with a unicorn out of Israel post the Abraham Accords, Rapid, who've now set up in the DIFC. They're in the payment space. They offer payment rails. Yeah. So it's accelerating companies, it's startups, and actually it's a great, as I said, that community, those wealth pools, it's a great location for capital raising, right? So firms in the DIFC have raised over over $300 million now. So that's one of the benefits of being in the ecosystem. Yeah, and so our focal point, we cluster all the tech companies in what we call the innovation hub, and really a key benefit, right, of being in the DIFC is that you become a DIFC client, and your success is our success, because if you come and fail and you go, then ultimately that isn't any good for us, right? So we co-brand with you in the market. Firms can say, hey Ali, we want to hold a briefing session on our great new wealth tech solution. We'd promote that to our community, and you would get the exposure, as well as having those structured programs, right? So we do have that accelerator program that you can apply to. Our regulator, the DFSA, has an innovation testing license, they call it, which is equivalent to a regulatory sandbox. And over a period of time, we've accelerated over 120 companies, and 20 have passed through our regulatory sandbox. So you've got the accelerator program, you've got the sandbox, we co-brand with you, and we've also introduced this innovation license, which is open to any type of tech, and it's a very sort of low cost, low friction way of becoming part of the center. We also have, I haven't mentioned, when I talked about public and private capital, we are part of, Dubai has put in place a $300 million, 1 billion dirham future fund. So the manager of that is actually sitting in the DIFC, and 50% of that is being invested through VCs and 50% direct. And there is a sort of application and application process and criteria that's there. So yeah, those are the kinds of benefits that we're trying to put forward.
Ali, before you continue, I have a question about the innovation license.
Yes.
You have mentioned that it was given by the regulator, I suppose.
No, so you've got two paths. If you are from the get-go, from the start, you want to offer a product or solution that requires regulation, financial regulation, but you're bringing a new innovation, to the market, then you can apply to the DFSA for their innovation testing license. Okay, and they run 2 cohorts a year for that, roughly, summer and a winter cohort. If that is separate to the innovation license, which is something that the DIFC authority can issue for tech companies that are not providing regulated activities, but maybe are at an earlier stage. Maybe they're researching the market. Maybe they've got a solution not in the regulatory space that they can bring. And I've got more details on that on the next slide.
Okay.
So we have 2 packages really for the innovation license, and the first one is the market entry package, and that's for the first 12 months, and that allows you to be part of the ecosystem, but you're in R&D mode. You're looking at setting up the business. You're looking to make the connections in the market, but you're not booking revenue. So it's a pre-launch type of opportunity. So it allows you to enter the ecosystem, and then you're in preparatory mode, and then that one after 12 months migrates to the standard package, which is on the right hand side, and that's a deeply incentivized costs. So the costs really are minimal in terms of registration and office space. And office space is you can take a flexi desk, and you can have a number of residency visas. We handle all the visas ourselves. You get a residency visa for your employees and dependents, and it's really easy. And we tried to, I think we've put this in place to address the issue of, well, yes, but obviously cost is an issue, and through this I think we've kind of solved for the cost issue, and then people, once they're on the ground, they see actually that there are opportunities, and they can quickly generate revenue, and then grow from there. And we can circulate, Salim, these slides, sure. Or anyone that wants further information, let me know. Sure. And then just sort of wrapping up, really, I mean, we're trying to add value across tech companies. We're continue to look at our regulatory infrastructure, continue to look at furthering engagement, facilitating engagement across the community, and then through the wider market. As I said, we're running those knowledge weeks throughout 2022, and we're looking at various other things. And for talent, it's interesting actually. Recently, I mentioned Rapid. They're actually putting developers in the DIFC. So previously we had it was pretty much front office, marketing, sales, but now it's really, blossoming as a location, a developer hub. So we're trying to, facilitate, growth of that type of talent as well. So yeah, everything we're trying to do is to bring day one revenue forward for tech companies, and because, as I said, their success is going to be our success. So you've got low cost, and then trying to give you that sort of market opportunity engagement, and then the certainty of the business environment. And then finally, I mean, yeah, we're very much part of the wider UAE, governmental, regulatory, business environment. So, we have MOUs in place with the central bank. We're connected to their FinTech team, and we're trying to drive the future of finance together. So, yeah, those are sort of key areas that I was going to cover, Salim. So, happy to take questions.
Perfect. I have some tough questions. So if you close the presentation so that people can see both of us in the same screen. So my first question is about the application process. As you mentioned, there's a process for the startups for the application to the DIFC. Is it a tough process, or are there some assistance on the application process? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's necessarily, it's not a tough process. It's, as you would expect, the process differs slightly depending on which avenue you're going to go down. But very much you have the support of us. So that's me and my colleagues in Dubai. So if you were to come to me and say, Ali, I'm interested in an innovation license in the DIFC, then I would, alongside my colleagues in Dubai, show you how the application process works, what documents need to be submitted. It's all online, so we try to make it as straightforward. We give you access to a portal. You upload salient information, company details, business model, etc. And for an innovation license, it should really be a 2 to 3 week process to go through. But we are there. And then actually what we also do is that once you get your license, you are actually appointed a relationship manager, a DIFC authority relationship manager, who is there at all times to support any questions that you have, or any issues that come up. So that's the innovation license. And then for the innovation testing license, which is the regulatory sandbox, that is a DFSA process, but it's transparent. It's on their website there is a guide that they've put up there in terms of how to go about the applying for the innovation testing license. So I would say that it's on a par with other other jurisdictions in terms of a process, but the added value is that we're here. You've got somebody to speak to. It's not something your application goes in and then it's just a black hole or black box. We will look positively and proactively to address any issues to make it as straightforward as possible.
Okay, but in terms of being in Dubai, with regards to a visa, do you offer any assistance to get a visa in Dubai?
Yes, so of course, anyone setting up an entity in the DIFC is issued a 3-year residency visa, and the entire process is actually done within the DIFC, and we have a team, our government services team that liaise with the immigration department, and the visa process you're not running around to different ministries and everything else. It actually just happens in the physical location of the DIFC, and it's 2 or 3 days for the visa to be issued. But the DIFC handles the administration of that. So we will make the requests. We'll ask you to submit the documents that you need. We will then process that, and then have the visa issued. So yes, we absolutely provide support on that.
Perfect. We know that Dubai is not a cheap city. So is it mandatory to have a physical presence in the DIFC to obtain a license?
Yeah, great. Great. Good point, Salim. I mean, in terms of the cost of the city, it's quite interesting. I was doing some research the other day, and I think it's an index that MasterCard put together in terms of cost of living in different countries or cities, and Dubai has actually become more competitive over the years. Its current ranking is 42, so I think number one is the most expensive, right? So 42 is where Dubai is, and to give you a comparison, I think London is 18. So the cost of living is more competitive than it used to be. Having said that, we obviously appreciate and realize for innovation companies, particularly in the growth stages, cost is important, and that's why we've introduced those innovation license routes to really bring that down. So it is something that is viable. On the other, but you need a physical presence. On the other hand, you can apply to the accelerator program without having a presence in Dubai. It's not as effective, obviously, but you can certainly,
it's an online program.
Yeah, well, I mean, you can you don't have to register a company to go on the program, right? So, but the whole point about what we're offering is that you have, in order to make the magic happen, you need to be physically, plugged in. That's what I would say.
Okay, so of course it depends, but what is the timeline of obtaining a license?
Yeah, as I said, for an innovation license, it's 2 to 3 weeks should be, providing the information required or requested is submitted. So that's fairly swift, and then it's for the innovation testing license, the DFSA looks to get that in play, as quick as they can. But regulators need to do what they do, right? So it could be a few months to go through that process. But again, it's not going to be any different than you find with financial regulators in other established markets.
I'm not sure that if you know, but I'm a great fan of regulatory sandboxes. So as far as I know, Dubai is one of those in the region. So what is the process in being in the regulatory sandbox?
Yeah, so as I said, with the DFSA, they run 2 cohorts, per year, a winter and summer cohort. They post up on their website, when those windows for application are open. They have a guide again, which I can provide, which stipulates the criteria, and generally they accept applicants into the innovation testing license program that are providing an innovation in the financial markets that may not necessarily already be available in the UAE. So if you're providing you're providing a tech solution, but in something that others have already provided, then they'll just say, well, just apply for the standard regulatory license. So the regulatory sandbox, or the innovation testing license, is to test new innovations in the financial services space. So that they have a set of criteria. There is a guide that shows the different steps in the process, from application submission to their due diligence and their questions. And then typically they would license, once you get the innovation testing license, typically you have certain limitations on your business, right? Because that's the whole point. The full regulatory requirements are not applied to you, but in relation to that, your business is also limited. Maybe it's the number of clients you take it on board. Maybe it's the number of, the volume of transactions, etc. So that you can test, that's what we're doing, testing the model to ensure that it's working as expected. And then that typically after 12 months of, being in the sandbox type of environment, the DFSA, if everything is good, they'll say, okay, we're going to issue you your standard, your full license, subject to you, basically, meeting the additional obligations that were initially, disapplied or waived, if you like. So it is, as I said, over 20 firms have gone through. I think for every, cohort, it's around 10 to 20 firms are selected. To enter. Not all firms will, go through and then be licensed. But it's available there. And, as I said, the information is on the DFSA website, and I can certainly provide that to anyone that's interested.
So we are coming to the end of our webinar, but I have a last question. But last but not the least, of course, I had many. Let's talk a little bit about raising capital. So let's talk about investors. Is it easy to find capital, or what are the motivation of the investors, or who are the biggest investors, banks or corporate VCs or other VCs as well?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point, Salim. I mean, on the VC side, we definitely, as I said previously, the opportunity is private and public capital. And, so VCs, because we put in the new, VC regime, which tailors regulatory requirements reflecting, the lower risk profile, if you like, of VCs. We've seen a tremendous increase in the number of VCs, both from the region and internationally, that are now based in the DIFC. They're also seeing the cluster, right? So which offers potential for investment. So VC firms are definitely active. As I said, the firms in the DIFC, the tech companies, have now raised over $300 million from VCs, but also those family offices. So there are over 50 family offices in the DIFC. So again, that's for private capital, technology, innovation, very interesting space, and they're looking at diversifying. And then on the public capital side, as I said, Dubai has taken a position. It has its 1 billion dirham future fund, and that is being deployed through the DIFC. So the manager sits in the DIFC, the fund is domiciled in the DIFC, and there is an application process for that. So the market, reflecting those wealth pools that I mentioned right at the beginning. I think it's a really attractive place to engage investors.
We are all familiar with the private funds, but in Dubai, it's also good to know about the public funds and also the family offices as well.
Yes, yeah, of course.
So we do not know how they are working, but it's good to know it from you.
Yeah, thank you.
So, okay, we are coming to the end. It was a great time with you. It was a very informative webinar for us and for the all FinTech ecosystem in Turkey. Thank you very much for your time and your presence in here. Hope we are going to be together again.
Of course. No, it's been an absolute privilege. Thank you very much for the invitation. This is part of actually a series of engagements we've had with Turkey, as the UAE and Turkey, strengthen and build on the economic ties. And I see a mutually successful future for both countries.
Exactly. I hope after this webinar, many of our entrepreneurs would like to be in Dubai as well.
Excellent, Salim. And I'm sure we're going to see flow into Turkey as well, both investments and companies in a not too distant future.
Hopefully. Okay. Thank you again for your time. Hope to see you again.
Thank you very much.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye. Bye.